Paul, you alluded earlier to pretty much your interest in community work and committee work right from the start of your studies at the University of Sydney. One committee you were involved in from the 60s onwards, which many might not know about, is your involvement with Choice magazine. And that's a very important magazine and has been for many years when it comes to giving the public, I suppose, the truth, or at least a perspective about the products that they use and that are at their disposal. What led to your interest in being involved with Choice magazine?
I guess I was always interested in consumer rights and had supported the consumer movement in Britain, the US and in Australia. And the vanguard of the consumer movement in Australia was Choice magazine, or the Australian Consumers Association. And I was fortunate enough to join their board, and I'm very impressed by the work that they did, and later became the chair. And I was chair for quite some time, and then the federal government established a national consumer advice several years.
Contemporaneously, in the US in the mid-60s, Ralph Nader was very much coming to the fore. He wrote a seminal book about cars, Unsafe at Any Speed, which led to the introduction of seatbelts. Now, was that an important book for you?
Oh, I guess it was. Ralph Nader was an important person for me, as well as many others in the consumer movement. He came to Australia quite frequently, and I met him on a number of occasions and had lots of animated conversations with him. I think, unfortunately, he finished up badly when he got into politics and ran as an independent candidate in the presidential election, and that was probably a mistake on his part, which is sad.
So do you think, in a way, that's one area where consumer activists, it can be almost, as you say a moment ago, a mistake to just go that extra step and get involved in politics because you get nailed to the mast, as it were?
I think so. I think that we could probably think of examples, which I won't name now, where people have come out of various movements, environmental movements or others, and gone into ministerial and posts and politics and have not been a great success.
Was that what stopped you from becoming involved in politics?
I think probably I'm not very good at the art of compromise, and I knew that I'd have to be. I was asked by Neville Wran whether I was interested in running for the seat of Burwood in 1976, and I thought about it overnight and went back to see him the next day and said, no, I didn't think that I could compromise my principles enough to be a good politician. And so that was the end of my political interest.
There has been a call, nevertheless, over recent years for more conviction politicians. You wouldn't have sort of changed your views on the basis of that?
I think there are actually less conviction politicians around today than there were in those days. I can think of a few politicians in those days who were quite outspoken and prepared to cross the floor on issues of principle, whichever party they were in, both in state and federal politics. But that's hardly likely to be the situation today.
The New South Wales Bar has been described as the nursery for politicians, and there was a very interesting period between the 1940s and 1960s when a number of people at the bar ended up becoming well known in politics. I'm thinking of people like Gough Whitlam, for example. Knowing all of that, you nevertheless weren't tempted?
No, and I also wanted to devote time to my family, and I knew that that would be harmful. Having a political career would be harmful to the family, and I'd seen it in other lawyer politicians that was destroying their home lives, and I decided, as it were overnight, not to have any part of it.
When you knew Ralph Nader, were there aspects of his convictions or politics that you shared with him?
Oh yes, undoubtedly. He was like a one-track mind and quite fierce. And I think I did look up to Ralph Nader as quite an inspiration But my style was much more quiet, softly approach.
Mind you, that worked very well for Teddy Roosevelt, didn't it? Speak softly and carry a big stick, he was famous for saying.
That's right.
Do you think you carried that big stick?
I don't know about that.